featuring the Hyperion Financial Close Management and Hyperion Disclosure Management modules. My name is Cameron Miller. I'm the Consolidations Practice Director for MarketSphere, and we'll be hosting and guiding our conversation today as we look at these new products that have come from Oracle. MarketSphere is an Oracle Platinum partner and has proven itself as a leader in both EPM as well as ERP suite of applications. And the agenda that's in front of you today is going to be the topics that we'll walk through as we look at a financial close perspective, a quick preview and demo of the modules themselves, as well as a product demonstration, and then we'll close with a client case study and some best practice considerations. I'm pleased to have Jeff Jacoby with me as a Senior Solutions Consultant with Oracle. Jeff has a finance and accounting background with over 15 years of diverse industry experience. He's been with Oracle since 2005 and has helped numerous organizations overcome not only business challenges but also drive measurable results with the Oracle solutions. MarketSphere was founded back in 2002 as an outgrowth of the Arthur Andersen business practice and has grown in both the ERP and EPM space, delivering combined solutions across the full platform. Our abilities around the various modules as well as the deployment of business solutions has enabled our customers to achieve the results that they have desired. And we also participate with Oracle as a member of their advisory council to help guide and direct the future development of products to meet our clients' needs. As we think about the world-class close cycle for today's clients, it's becoming clear that it really needs to be evaluated across this entire stream of activities from a subledger close all the way through to the filing. Most of the activities that folks are involved in on a day-to-day basis are isolated into just one of these areas, and it's difficult for individuals across a finance organization to connect with each other and support each other as the close moves through this entire process. And certainly the tools that Oracle brings to the table help meet each of these areas in the specific business requirements and needs that are unique to each part of the solution. As companies evaluate the improvement in their close calendar, not only from terms of efficiency but accuracy as they produce their financial statements and provide them to their stakeholders. It's often areas that are unknown or not paid attention to around data assurance or some of the filings that can become bottlenecks in a process. And some of the capabilities that we'll be reviewing today are intended to help not only give visibility to, but actually increase productivity and efficiency around this entire close cycle. Some of the specific technologies that Oracle is now bringing to the table to address this entire close are presented on the page here before you now. A couple of the two boxes that are highlighted in green around the close management, process management tool, as well as disclosure management are the two products that we'll review specifically today. Most companies have taken advantage of an ERP implementation over the years as well as a consolidation tool to help address those specific areas and points of pain. Some of these others have been back burner issues that are now becoming more important and critical to address. Now, Jeff Jacoby is going to walk through a couple of slides from Oracle that outline the business issues and challenges as well as the benefits the Oracle solution brings to the table to meet those challenges, as well as walk through a demo of the software so you can get a glimpse of how the application actually lives and breathes. So, Jeff?
Hey, thanks, Cameron, and thanks, everyone, for taking time out of your busy schedules to attend today's webcast. We have just a few PowerPoints sort of to set the table around both of these new capabilities, the Close Manager and Disclosure Management. And then I'm going to walk you through a quick high-level integrated demonstration of both of these products. Now, as Cameron said, these are somewhat new modules to Oracle. These have been generally available for the past 3 months. But if you look at our legacy in terms of helping customers with the close process, specifically around the Hyperion suite, Hyperion really has around 25 years of helping customers with the consolidation and reporting activities. So the current consolidation platform is called Hyperion Financial Management, and many of you on the phone already use that capability. Now, customers have really been able to automate the consolidation and reporting with it. They got a lot of great visibility, auditability with that component. Many of those customers have come back to us and said, hey, look, that's great, but what I really need to gain efficiencies and auditability and automation across my process, I need a similar capability. What do you have for me? And that's really what drove the development of this first application we're going to discuss, the Close Manager. How can I get control over that entire process? Typical process today is to capture all of those granular tasks in a host of spreadsheets where they're manually checked off by the individuals who own those tasks. How do people in a current environment really understand when they can start one of their downstream tasks? Well, it's a phone call. It's an email. There is a lot of slack in the process. What if we have a challenge back in the subledger? What if we miss a critical task or are struggling? The downstream impact can be significant. It can definitely elongate that process. How do we get visibility, much the way an HFM user would get visibility across the consolidation? How can we do that across the entire spectrum of activities? So Oracle responded. Again, as I said, now general availability for over 3 months with these 2 new applications. Financial Close Manager is new to Oracle, but it's built on tried and true technology, leveraging the Universal Content Management System, which is basically the repository for all the underlying documentation and instructions relative to the tasks that are in the close, and the Beeple engine, which is the robust workflow engine, which will notify those who own tasks that they need to go ahead and start accomplishing that task. 4 key areas to look for as we're walking through the actual demonstration. The first one is around process monitoring. For those folks who are managers within an organization or for the controllers of your organization, they will have access to a dashboard and actually a host of different portlets on the dashboard. Those do ship with the product. They will give instant insight into the status of all the tasks across the entire close process from record to report. It will allow for quick drill down into those areas of concern. The ability for those managers to go ahead and take some action. Maybe someone is struggling with the completion of a task. They will be able to go ahead and muster the necessary resources to complete the task and continue the process efficiently. Task management, that's really the key to the application. It is the ability to take any task in the close, as granular as it may be, from a systematic task to a manual task, and capture key attributes about that task inside of the application. As an example, this first point, taking slack out of the process. As I mentioned earlier, how do the owners of those subsequent tasks know that they can begin work? What we'll do with that is, through this workflow engine, notify those users immediately so they can start work, and we will remove that time or that slack in the process. The other component around task management, which has really been exciting and well received by our existing customers, is the ability to go in context into, let's say, the HFM application. Maybe one of my tasks is to complete something in HFM around the consolidation. We'll be able to, right from this dashboard, click on a button and be taken right into HFM to complete that task. It also will integrate with third-party systems where web services are available. If there are no web services available, we have what are called parameterized URLs that will take that user right in context to that specific task in that underlying system. It really will help with efficiency in navigating through a complex ecosystem of different applications you may be running in your organization. Of course, we would obviously want to include some very robust capabilities around calendaring. So how do your users like to consume their tasks and understand the close process? This capability integrates with Outlook as well, so we can see this within the Outlook calendar or within the tasks in Outlook. Here, this view in the dashboard shows a weekly view. Again, it's going to be configurable to the end user however they want to see their task. Color coding is pervasive across the application. So based on the color of the tasks, you will be able to quickly understand the status of those tasks. Are they closed? Are they open? Are they pending? Is there an error or alert associated with them? From an auditability perspective, capturing all of the information relative to the completion of that task, date and timestamp of every user who has interacted with that task and when they finally signed off on that task. The ability to have questionnaires as a part of the completion of that task, ones that are even mandatory, where we can enforce our business process, where items are signed off. Now this auditability component, it has with the product the ability to create what's called a close binder. So at the end of the month, I can go ahead and publish this standalone file that contains all the attachments, all the backup, and all of the auditability information, which is critical when the auditors show up. Definitely, we're seeing a lessening of audit effort and less overhead on the accounting staff when the auditors show up. Everything in one place, easy to get your hands around the backup information. So let's go ahead and step over now into the last mile of the financial close process. So not only did our customers say, I need help across the entire continuum here, specifically, I have to go ahead and comply with the new SEC mandates around the XBRL components. So Oracle has responded to this. Now, if you look at the set of Oracle applications, many ERP systems, many performance management applications, we needed to come back to our customers with the strategic platform for handling these requirements. And that component is called disclosure management. So what were our customers facing? Really a couple of different options. One is to simply go out to the printers and have them go ahead and tag your filings. Now, with the detailed tagging requirements that are looming for many organizations, the level of effort is significant and the cost is significant. There's also typically a 72-hour turnaround to go ahead and get your tagged filings back, and you will still need to provide assurance that they have been done correctly. So we've heard from a lot of customers, not really a viable long-term solution. They want to own their data and own that process. The other option was a niche provider, which many of our customers have said, look, frankly, for this critical process, that's too risky of a proposition. I don't want to bring in a whole new set of infrastructure with a vendor that may not be here tomorrow. Can we leverage what we've already owned? And the answer, of course, is yes. For those customers who are already leveraging some of the performance management applications like Hyperion Financial Management or S-Base, this component is a very non-invasive piece of technology. It appears to the end user as simply an add-in in either Word or Excel that will allow you to tag not only the filings but also the paragraph or the textual information associated with those filings. So in a nutshell, with the first release, what we have is not only the ability to do that XBRL tagging, as I said earlier, relative to Close Manager, new product to Oracle but built on some tested technology, the same applies to disclosure management. We actually went out and looked at some of the industry leaders who had a lot of domain expertise with XBRL, and we have licensed the underlying technology for disclosure management from one of those leaders, and that company's name is UV Matrix. Now, what's significant about that for our customers is that that is the same validation technology that is used by the SEC itself to validate those filings that are submitted to them. So we're leveraging that existing industry-leading capability, as well as the taxonomy designer, which will ship with the product as well. Now, when we look at detailed tagging requirements that are looming, many folks will find that the standard taxonomies do not fit perfectly with their industry-specific needs around tagging. We have a taxonomy designer that ships with it, which allows the business user, again, this is all business user owned and operated, allows the business user to go out and extend those taxonomies very rapidly and continue on with the process. A couple of other things to point out, which we feel are really differentiators for us. You see here under the second point, two types of mappings that we can accomplish. One, of course, is report tagging, which is on the face of the report, the document created in Word in SmartView. We can tag that up across the critical components that must be tagged for the filing. But that second point, metadata tagging, real differentiator for us. What does that mean? That means that we can go ahead and tag at the account level your financial information. It's very reusable. Once I do that tagging at the account level, anytime I use those concepts in any of my filings anywhere, they will already be tagged and ready to go. So the concept is there will be an investment up front to do that initial tagging, but a high degree of usability as you go ahead and make subsequent filings. And of course, ownership of this process end to end. So the goal here is this single streamlined process. The tagging obviously happens in SmartView, but if you look at our capabilities with the rest of the performance management platform, capturing most of the data in your filing in one place and being able to automatically surface that in a Word document through SmartView technology, and then, of course, tagging it. Simple, streamlined process again. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at the products. So I'm going to go ahead and start out here with our first screen, and really we feature a couple of different roles here in the demonstration. The first one is Maria. Maria is the financial reporting manager. She has ownership to a host of tasks, so there's literally dozens of tasks across several areas of that recorded report process. We'll also take a look at what a user sees, a day in the life of a user, looking at only those specific tasks and how I can go into Close Manager and manage my tasks, complete my tasks, leverage some of that integration to go into the underlying performance management applications, complete those, sign off on them, and move forward. So the first thing Maria will do is she'll go ahead and log into the application. And upon logging in, she will see what is called our EPM workspace. So for those existing customers, this will be the landing page that contains everything that user likes to see on a frequent basis. These can include the planning application, the consolidation application, various dashboards, so on and so forth. Now, Maria wants to go ahead and drill into the actual close process. As the manager of the process, she wants to go ahead and take a look at that dashboard before she drills in and sees the status of the individual tasks in the process. Here on this dashboard, she can have access to a host of different metrics. Those can include those financial metrics coming from the underlying applications, as well as information about the close. So one of the things that, as we've studied world-class close processes, one of the key themes or characteristics of those companies is this whole culture of continuous improvement, understanding what our goals are, where have we been historically in terms of number of people involved, days to close, those types of metrics, and having this culture where we're continuously trying to improve and shave time off while enhancing quality of those results. Off to the right here, we see the closing progress versus plan. We have our stated targets, and we can see how we're trending. Now, if Maria wanted to go into the Close Manager itself, the simple click takes you into the dashboard component, which does ship with the product. Here, Maria is exposed to a host of different portlets where she can go ahead and get her hands around any of the individual processes that are happening. On the upper left, we'll see the open issue status chart. So based off of the status of any of those tasks, which ones are with those assignees who are actually working on those, which ones have successfully completed. She could drill into alerts to see those areas where we're experiencing some challenges and difficulties, creating that visibility to allow her to take some action to muster the right resources to move those on down the process and have them closed out successfully. Off to the right, we see her work list. So those specific things that she's actually the assignee for, the things that she has to do in the process. Again, many different ways to consume the data. As I said earlier, color coding is pervasive. We can see this stacked up in this corporate close overview based off of status, based off of the day in the process. Let's say she wanted to drill down a little further and start to look at those granular components, those individual tasks. She could go ahead and click on any of the charts or the individual tasks and drill in. Now that she's drilled in, you will see, again, a list of those specific tasks that are with assignees right now. Again, this view of the tasks themselves can be configured by the end user to show only the columns of data that they want. So who is the owner of it? What is the start date? What is the end date? What is the goal for the duration of that task? Off to the lower right, you'll see this visual representation of successor and predecessor tasks. What's significant about this from the end user perspective is this will allow that user to understand that after completion of this given task, the subsequent or downstream tasks, those owners can begin work. Again, they're automatically notified. So if I'm struggling with a task, I'll understand some of those downstream impacts if I don't go ahead and take some action to address my challenge that I may be having as I go through a task. Of course, instructions. We're going to talk about the significance of this. If you look at typical accounting staff, people are taking vacations. There is attrition. The ability to fully document that individual process flow in the task is very important. And this, again, is a summary of the instructions. We have the ability to really enhance that through links to web pages and attachments on the task itself. Now, if I go ahead and drill into this individual task here, you'll see 4 different tabs. The first one is the Properties tab, and that one will again allow us to see some of that more granular instruction capability, a link to a website. Backup documentation can be associated with the task as well. Further down on the Properties tab, we'll see the Question section. So these will be configured for each one of the tasks where they're applicable. The asterisk indicates that we can enforce a mandatory response to these requests. The user cannot submit this unless they complete the questions, if that's the desire for that specific task. So very important around auditability. Alerting. This is the ability that I spoke of earlier, where the user can raise their hand for help, immediately flagging those folks who have ownership of the task or need visibility of that task. Maybe they're owners of the downstream tasks that will be affected. By raising alert, everyone is notified that, hey, we're struggling back with a given task, and you may have an impact as a result of that. Again, auditability is a huge component. When I drill into the alert, I'll see when it was created, when it was assigned, and who it was assigned to, what the issue is, what the challenge is, what the priority is, what type of issue are we experiencing. These last 2 tabs really are around that auditability aspect. History shows, again, every date and timestamp and user who has accessed the task and completed some action on that. The Related Task tab, again, is a visual representation of the relationship of the successor and predecessor task that we saw here on that main page. Now, if I go ahead and expand off to the left, you'll see this panel called Filter Tasks. Now, as Maria has access to literally dozens of tasks, the ability to quickly filter this information to expose only what she needs to see is critical. Here we can see, based off of attributes, the ability to click on any of these buttons. So on the basis of what task type it is, what is the status, does it need attention, who is the owner, who's working on it, I can quickly distill this list off to the right according to these attributes that I see on the left. Now I can go ahead and remove that filter at any point to see the whole universe of tasks that I have ownership with. Here you see the flash filter. I have the ability to create a custom filter so I can see exactly the task that I need to see on a daily basis as we go through the close. Again, this is something the end user creates. end user owned and operated, configure it, consume the information exactly the way that you want to see the information. Creating those custom filters. Now, again, to this end of how do you want to experience that close process, the ability to go in and see those calendars. So in this case, the daily view of it. Green means open task being worked. Currently, if I drilled on any of these, it would show that task view again with the different tabs. So I can go ahead and access that information if there's something that piques my interest at this point. And also go back in and see weekly views of those tasks, and of course, the monthly view. Again, integrates into the email system as well as calendaring and Outlook. Now, for people who have a project management background, the ability to go out and see this in the form of a Gantt chart, which again gives us a little more information. The thickness of these colored bars, those really speak to the relative duration of the given task. The lines that connect them, that is again another visual representation of that interconnectedness of those tasks. So these are related tasks. Here I can see the scheduled duration of them, and based off of the color coding, what is the current status. Again, all of this information we have the ability to create this closed binder by simply running a report. We can do it actually at any time during the month and have that off to the side for others to go ahead and review and examine the backup if you would like to consume that offline. So that was Maria and her role, typical view for someone who's a controller, corporate controller, regional controller, anyone who has ownership and management of the individuals who are assigned to the specific task. Now, Barry, he's one of the users. He's the accountant who has a few tasks in the monthly process. How does Barry get notified that he can begin work? Well, as I said, one of the values of the solution is the ability to notify that user that, hey, the predecessor tasks are done. I can start my specific task. In this case, email comes to Barry. We need to go ahead and load some flash income statement data into the consolidation platform. So it's typical with many organizations. They will start looking at things like revenue and COGS day one. They'll do a manual entry of that because the underlying subledgers and GLs are not closed to give a full trial balance yet. But we need visibility into revenue. So this is something Barry has responsibility for a few entities within the consolidation platform. So now Barry will go ahead and log into the application. And now you can see that when he logs in, his view is a bit different. It's just his specific work list. So again, from an end user's perspective, how long would it take an organization to learn this module, to uptake this capability? Well, it's fairly straightforward, and we expect very minimal ramp. Similarly used metaphors that have been used in Windows environments and web pages over a number of years. Simple task list, utilizing my email. We don't have a complex set of navigation to go through. Barry simply logs in, he sees his task list, and his first one that is due is loading that flash income statement data. When he clicks on that, the task will appear, again, the one we looked at when we were in as Maria, as the manager. Here we can see the button for Go to Task. At this point, you could go ahead and click on that, and now you'll notice across the top, within our workspace here, we have another tab has appeared for our HFM or consolidation application. So we have that integration to the performance management applications today out of the box and can readily integrate with other systems that are a part of your infrastructure. So according to the task, again, we can have the documentation that helps guide Barry if this is if he's new to the process or new to the job. We'll have that back on the task. He understands what he needs to do. He's brought in context into the application and can go ahead and complete that specific task by entering his flash data. Again, we're in that core HFM application here. When we're done doing our specific task, go ahead and submit it. Navigate back to the close manager, and now go ahead and answer those auditability questions that that we need to capture as a part of the task itself. In this case, were there any errors with the load file? The answer, of course, is no. Enter the time and date of and location of the extraction file, so we can go ahead and capture that information in there as well. And we're done doing that questionnaire, submitting that back in. Of course, at this point now, Maria would see that task has been completed. It's out there for her review. If that's the business process where it needs to be reviewed by Maria, she'd go in and see if she could review that process and do the final sign-off on that, if that is the process flow you'd like to follow. Again, this is all very flexible and configurable to meet your specific business processes. Barry's next task is to go ahead and validate the XBRL mappings. And so in order to do that, he clicks on that task, and again, we have a set of instructions here. Please review the attached corporate income statement to ensure that the restructuring disclosure items are properly mapped. So at this point, Barry would go ahead and click on that link, and he would be brought into SmartView at that point. So this 10K was created by the performance management applications, leveraging this integration with the Office suite of products, specifically Word. Go ahead and open that, and now he's brought into Microsoft Word, and you'll notice at the top that he has this menu item now. It's titled Disclosure Management. So again, very non-invasive technology. It simply, to the end user, looks like an add-in and provide that tagging capability. Barry's first step, again, is to connect back to the platform to make sure that he has the most recent information that's in the platform and inside of this filing. He'll go ahead and connect into that, back into the performance management repository, and take a look at mapping. So if I click on the mapping ribbon now, which is part of the disclosure management menu item, we'll see off to the right here this mapping tool appears. Now there are a few different components that need to be mapped with any filing to be valid and to comply with the requirements. His first step along the way really is to go ahead and select that taxonomy that he will use. In this case, it's his 10K taxonomy. Now, all taxonomies that will be leveraged by your organization, those can be downloaded from the XBRL website. And again, we can extend those with the taxonomy designer tool that ships with the product. Here he will select the taxonomy that he will use. And let's say he wanted to just take a look at one of the items off to the right here in the taxonomy to see where it is mapped here off on the left pane in the financial statement. Selecting services, you will see then every instance of that concept services that appears in the financials off to the left. If it's highlighted in yellow, it has been previously tagged. Now again, as I said earlier, there's a high level of reusability with this tagging. We tag the items once. The only retagging or the only incremental tagging that needs to happen is when we add a new item to our financials. In this case, we've added this restructuring line item, and in a few seconds here, Barry's going to go ahead and tag that across all the three dimensions that he needs to update the filing. If I page down, again, I would see every instance of that concept services has been already tagged and is highlighted in the application. Here we see, or in the actual report, here's the restructuring. That is the new item. Barry would simply select that item and find it in the taxonomy. Again, it's hierarchical here. We can expand and contract the taxonomy, or there's a search capability. So if I don't want to page through dozens of these items in the taxonomy, I can quickly do a search and find that item and do the mapping. First step to go ahead and start the tagging process is selecting the item here in the taxonomy as well as that item we want to go ahead and tag in the actual filing itself. And it's as simple as clicking the Attach Mapping button. The next step along the way is to do the context. So the context is, think of it as the duration for which this specific financial number is for the time duration. In this case, if it's a K, the duration would be a year. We could have it be for 3 months, or we could have a duration of just what's called instant. This allows for quick roll forwards, actually, of your subsequent filings, because if I want to go ahead and start my new K process the following year, I would simply go in and edit this one component and change the from and to date on it. So it's easy to do roll forwards in it. I can also select an entire column of data where I want to apply that duration to. So I can select the column of data, hit the attach mapping button, and we know that the tagging has been successful by the yellow highlighting. The last component here is around units. So think of units as, in this case, you can see here we're going to tag USD, but we know with filings there are a lot of non-financial data in those filings, things like operational metrics or share count, things that need to be tagged for the filing. This is where we would select those in the filing and, again, attach that mapping. We can also do footnotes, so we can do detailed components of the footnotes as well. We can map this footnote to a specific line item in Word, so associate this revenue recognition footnote with a revenue item here in the income statement, attach the mapping, and the highlight, the yellow, will appear as well. As I mentioned earlier, we have this underlying engine from UB Matrix which does that validation process. Before we even get to validations, we could go ahead and click on any of these components again and just do a quick review. If I click here to validate that filing, it's going to invoke that validation engine to ensure that every component has the correct concept, context, and unit associated with it. And after I run validation, I could then go ahead and generate that instance document, which is a simple click of an export button. It will generate the XBRL for me. And, as we know, XBRL is just simply a format which associates the different attributes of that given number or data point on your filing with the concept, context, and unit. So it's simply a formatting methodology. And, of course, most people would struggle to read that raw XBRL, so it does ship with its own viewer. It also uses the SEC viewer to see these in human-readable form. Here's an example of what that would look like within the SEC viewer, and continue on down our process. Now, one of the things to point out before we go back into Close Manager is around this button, and it's called Create Master Documents. Now, the goal is to get as much of the information relative to your filings within the platform itself and automate the creation of that through a tool like financial management or by leveraging tools like Essbase. Now, that's a great goal to have, but we know because of the comprehensive nature of these filings, much of that data will never be in a controlled repository like HFM. It just wouldn't make sense. Things like, let's say, a PP&E schedule. That schedule does need to be included in the filings, but how do we incorporate that back into the master document? Well, this capability exists with the product to allow us to incorporate something like an underlying detailed schedule that's not really in any system. It may be an accountant that creates a schedule and saves it in Excel or Word but needs to feed into this document. We have the capability to link what these items, which are called doc lists, either an Excel or Word document, back into this master document. Now, the way it works is when that accountant would go ahead and create that new schedule, he would open up that doclet, make the proper changes, and as soon as that document is saved, those changes will flow back into this master document. Again, we can tag at that underlying doclet level, so those tags that were created during the last quarterly process are still there. They're inherent. They will not have to be redone unless there's been a change in an addition of a new line item. Those tags are already there. Once saved, they will flow back into that master document. After completing that exercise, Barry will go back in, look at the task, and of course we have questions specific to that task back in the Close Manager. Did you use the latest XBRL taxonomy, yes or no? Add additional comments. Attached as the instance document. Again, we're putting that out in that repository for those concerned with that given item. They have visibility to it. They can pull up that backup. They're not walking around with a thick close binder of paper. Anything associated with that task that is relevant that others need to be aware of or the auditors need can be captured. Again, did we attach the instance document? Yes or no? And at the end of that process, submitting it. So that was just a quick look at some of the capability of the application. Now, to close out, I just had a couple of slides again to reiterate what we've been discussing relative to the close manager and disclosure management. So key takeaways as far as the close manager is concerned. Taking that capability that had existed in the consolidation platform and extending it across the entire process. Real-time insight to it all the way back to the sub-ledgers. Taking the slack out of the process, that notification of those owners of those downstream tasks that, yes, they can start work. They don't have to wait for a phone call, wait for an email. The calendaring component. So that ties nicely into the what we call explicit personalization. How do your users want to experience the application? How do they like to see it? The filtering of the information, the ability to see it in chart form, in the Gantt chart or in the pie chart form, and again, drill into it down to that most granular level. And of course, the auditability component. The idea there is lowering that close effort as well as being able to look back retrospectively at any of our historical closes to say, you know, we want to continuously improve. Where did we have challenges last month or last quarter? As far as disclosure management is concerned, key takeaways. Again, ownership of this critical process. We're not hamstrung by, you know, the whims of our printer to charge us a fee every time we want to go ahead and do that filing. A high level of reusability here around tagging. Tagging at that base account level. Do it one time, leverage it every time you use it in any of your filings. That same validation engine used by the SEC, so feeling comfortable from a customer's perspective that this isn't some new technology that we've just created. We're leveraging that industry-leading component. The same one used by the SEC, giving our customers a high degree of comfort that this validation engine will meet their needs to ensure that the filing is valid and done properly. The last component here is really around the ability to extend those taxonomies easily. We know most organizations, the stock taxonomies will not fit the bill. Allow the end users, the business users, to go in quickly and rapidly modify those to meet their specific requirements. So with that, we will be taking questions at the end of the call. But for our next item here, Cameron's going to hop back on and take you through one of our customers, Hillenbrand, and walk you through the case study relative to that. And at the end, we'll have some time for questions relative to close manager and disclosure management. Cameron, are you there?
Thank you, Jeff, for that presentation. Very helpful. Hillenbrand is a company located in Batesville, Indiana, that provides burial information products to most of the funeral home directors throughout the country. They recently acquired a leading global provider of bulk solids material handling company called Catron, and have been in the process of not only integrating Catron into their HFM consolidation application, but also just recently purchased and are beginning and in the middle of implementation around disclosure management. The Hillenbrand is considered in the other large accelerated U.S. filer category, and they're just now required to comply with the XBRL reporting requirements for this June 30th, 2010 quarter end. They have chose to select, purchase, and are now implementing disclosure management because of a couple key reasons. After performing a cost-benefit analysis, it became clear to them that the cost of buying the software and implementing it was less than the annual recurring cost that would come with sending the XBRL process to a printer. And particularly as you move into year 2 requirements, when the detailed footnote tagging becomes part of the required set of filings, it became cost prohibitive to continue to do that from an outsourced perspective. In addition, they had a desire to maintain control of the XBRL reporting process and keep it in-house to help take some of the slack out of a close process and the turnaround time that is required to send it to a printer, have the printer tag the documents and send them back to the client to be able to review and validate that everything is correct. Lastly, they wanted to take advantage of the natural integration with HFM and the ability to create a Q or a K using SmartView in Word and take that data and tag it to the XBRL taxonomies. In terms of a project approach, we found so far with this product, disclosure management, that a typical project is approximately 4 to 5 weeks. It involves a process of installing the software, aligning and mapping the financials to the XBRL taxonomy, inputting, testing, and validating the mappings, training the users on how to leverage the application to manage this process going forward, and then to develop and produce the XBRL reports themselves. A couple of best practice considerations is to understand the architecture impact if you're not deploying, or if you are deploying in a non-version 11.1.2 environment. There are some considerations around the server architecture and the deployment process to ensure that the project is usable. When possible, as well, we have found that you want to avoid creating a customized XBRL taxonomy, albeit that there are, as Jeff mentioned, there are some instances where extending the taxonomy for specific reporting lines that are unique to your business, to your industry, is going to be required. But the goal, obviously, long-term is for XBRL to become a standard reporting structure mechanism for all companies. And so adding unnecessary customization is an area to avoid and certainly helps the projects go a little quicker. Stepping back out to a broad level perspective, and as we started the conversation talking about the overall financial close process and considerations around what it takes to be successful from beginning to end, Marcosphere utilizes the following framework, process review framework, to understand where the bottlenecks and the choke points are in a company's close calendar and where the areas and opportunities for improvement exist. Step one in this process is to identify the reporting elements. What is the output of the process, and who are the audience or consumers of that information throughout the organization? That brings up areas of conversation around or debate around a thin GL versus a thick GL, and what do I get out of a GL reporting versus what do I get from a consolidation tool like HFM. It also begins to attack the structure of the data, and how do I normalize that data across an entire company and leverage that data to produce the required reports and information that is needed to run the business. The second step then is to evaluate the close calendar and the playbook and look at the overall workflow and critical path items, task dependencies, and the cycle time standards needed to effectively manage the close. And this is where the product, like financial close management that you saw previously, becomes very powerful. The third step is to go do an evaluation of the consolidation and FX logic, ensuring that all of the appropriate elimination points as well as the consolidation method and FX processes are integrated and utilized consistently across the company. Step 4 is to flesh out the reporting requirements into a set of reporting standards and making sure that the consumption of those reports are delivered, and even developing a center of excellence to manage the consumption and use of the financial documents that are produced. That can take on specific flavors from a corporate view as well as a business unit view and even a cost center view on the various types of reporting information that's needed out of these applications. Step 5 then is to ensure that you have a strong quality and data management process in place, ensuring that not only the data itself but also the metadata is governed and controlled from beginning to end, so that as I create charts of account or as I create entities, as new cost centers are created, that those are created and managed and deployed effectively across the entire company, so that when we view or submit or send out reports, everyone knows and is updated with the latest hierarchies. And so there takes out the confusion of what numbers are included in one number on a report versus another report. The last step then is to consider any performance or scenario requirements. What is the overall closed calendar cycle time that we're trying to achieve, and then run through several test case performance scenarios to ensure that we're meeting the overall required standards. Then all of this upfront activity then would lead into a detailed design that would be specific to the application being deployed, whether that's an ERP package combined with a consolidation tool like HFM or even just HFM specifically. When we think about the consolidation process in particular, and some of the best practices that Marcosphere has begun to pull together from multiple clients that we've worked with, we've developed a full library of best practices that are there for your consideration. Our perspective is that best practices are best utilized as a framework to target areas of improvement that you are struggling with. It's not a panacea or a cure-all for every problem that you have in your organization, but there are considerations to see what the best practice is for you as a company and your culture and your people and resources that you have at your disposal. A few of the specific ones that we've pulled out are to enable a continuous close to shorten the cycle time, as well as to come up with a standard chart of accounts at the consolidation level that the disparate general ledger trial balances in various divisions and regions can map to, and using a robust mapping tool in order to provide integration of the source data into the consolidated financial statements. One of the other items has to do with intercompany activity, and it tends to be an area of pain for most corporations, and we recommend the instigating or implementing the requirement to record the partner at the time the GL transaction occurs, so that you don't have to execute any manual processes or custom consolidation rules to pick or determine where to consolidate that activity across the tree or hierarchy structure, but that it will happen automatically through the functionality of HFM. Some of these other items around the FX translation in the consolidation tool, as well as legal segment management reporting in one application, allow you to produce consolidated results against various reporting structures and requirements, and so that I load the data once and am able to consolidate across different structures for the various reporting needs. Providing auditable data flow with drill back to source data is functionality that's been delivered recently with the platform that provides direct not only auditability but comfort and assurance that the source data that's being loaded to the application is accurate and correct. And for analytical purposes, I can start with a high-level reporting line or even an account balance and drill back to the specific transactions that made up that balance. Another best practice that we found is to distribute process management across the organization, to multi-thread the close process so that you incorporate accountability and control within the individual controllers that have to sign off and approve that their financials are accurate and being consolidated accurately within the overall corporate financial statements. The last couple items then are enabling or delivering best practice or best of breed reporting tools to your users to be able to distribute the information that they're signing off on to the various constituencies that rely on them for that information. So thank you very much for your time this afternoon as we begin to think about next steps or how to get started. Marcosphere does offer a close and consolidation assessment where we would come in and think with you through your close and consolidation process, understanding how both your ERP and EPM solutions can be leveraged to improve your financial reporting processes. We can help you think through the strategic issues such as IFRS and how to prepare and think about those requirements as they're coming down the road, as well as the immediate requirements around XBRL that we've talked about today. Coming out of that, we would help think through a high-level roadmap for you to determine what is the first step that I need to take today versus the last step and how do I get there, and what are the sequence of activities and events that I need to think about and the timing of those events in order to improve our overall process. And if you're interested in taking that next step, please send an email to the email address at the bottom of your screen, contact@marcosphere.com, and we'll get back with you to set up an appointment to help you think through those items. We would like to open it up for the last few minutes here for any questions that you may have that either Jeff or myself could address for you. We've provided the capability through the WebEx panel on the right-hand side that if you can pull up the chat window and select all panelists and submit your question there, and then we'll take a few moments to respond to those. While we're waiting for some of those questions to come in, there are a couple of questions that we often get from our clients that we thought would be pertinent to address specifically at this time. One is the question of whether a company or a client is required to have HFM in order to use or leverage disclosure management or financial close management. And the answer is no, that these products can be sold and implemented separately. We believe that they're most effective and you get the most value out of the products when you have them as part of an integrated platform. But it is possible to, as an example, implement disclosure management and provide tagging for your Q or your K separate from any other EPM application. One of the other questions we get along those lines is from clients that do have HFM, and I mentioned it earlier, that if they're on an earlier version, are they required to upgrade to version 11.1.2 in order to leverage these modules? And again, because they can be installed as separate standalone applications, it is possible to install them separate from your overall EPM platform, which might be a 9.3 or might be 11.1.13 even, and use these tools on a separate 11.1.2 environment to perform these specific activities. We have received one question that is asking whether disclosure management and close management are separate tools or separate apps. Jeff, would you like to address that one?
Sure, Cameron. So, yes, from a licensing perspective, they are two separate applications that with a different line item on the price list, as far as products go. But they are all fully integrated with the, existing enterprise performance management application. So as we went in to the demonstration, you saw that I logged into Workspace to access the close manager. And with disclosure management, you saw that I was within SmartView and just simply access that capability from a menu. So separate products in terms of price list, but same set of integrated, part of the integrated suite of products that is our performance management set of solutions. As Cameron said, not a prerequisite to have any of those in place today. Our approach has always been it's a start anywhere approach, stand up the applications over the course of time as you see value in those.
Thank you, Jeff. We received another question asking how long a typical implementation will take. So far, most of the implementations that we've seen are in the 4 to 5 week time frame. Of course, that depends on the complexity of an organization and how many consolidation entities are being reported in the Q or the K. And certainly it'll take a little bit longer to evaluate and map the detailed footnotes for a company that is in year 2 requirements. But for a middle-of-the-road, decent-sized company, about 4 to 5 weeks in our experience is what it takes to get this application up and running. And that's from software implementation through XBRL reporting, report generation. One of the other questions that we typically get from our clients is, so how does this fit into our SEC requirements, and how do I know that what I'm submitting to the SEC is going to be accurate and complete? And Jeff touched on that earlier, where the underlying engine that's used by disclosure management is actually UB Matrix, which the SEC themselves uses to validate mappings that they're receiving from all of their constituencies. And so the value is that when you create in the application will not actually let you create the document unless you pass those validation tests, so you're assured that it is complete before you submit it. One of the other questions that we've received is for a client that's on a previous version, do you have to move to version 11 in order to install these new products? And the answer is no, you do not. You can install just these two components on a version 11 application separate from your overall version 9.3 environment and get the benefit from it immediately and consider a migration path in the future that would take your overall platform to version 11.
Hey, Cameron, a quick question. One of your previous slides talked about this assessment that MarketSphere is offering up to your different customers. When I was a customer and attended these webcasts and was offered, similar types of engagements, there were times I was a little hesitant. We were busy closing the books, didn't have a lot of bandwidth in terms of getting the staff, to be able to spend several days in interview sessions. Could you describe, the different flavors that assessment could take on and give everyone a sense of, how thin that could be or how extensive that process could be to help everyone get comfortable with the fact that, these assessments can be sort of non-invasive as well and not take up a lot of bandwidth if that's a constraint?
Yeah, absolutely. We've approached these assessments with clients across a couple of paths. One is just a very easy 2 to 3 hour conversation where we walk through, and it's usually done over the phone, not even in person. We walk through the core areas or a couple of key issues that you're trying to address, and we talk through what your possible options or solutions might be to meet that need or to resolve that issue. And then we have done all the way up to a full day or even a full couple of days where we're evaluating an entire environment from the ERP all the way through EPM and all of the integration points and the data structures and how those applications need to be fit together to bring the most benefit to a client. So we certainly will work with you in your scheduling requirements, participants, to get you what you need in terms of the business benefits and an approach that will enable you to be successful.
Well, Cameron, it looks like we're approaching the top of the hour. There may be some other questions out there that we didn't get answered. I think everyone has the contact information for both Cameron and myself. Any other questions that come up, please feel free. Our phone numbers were included on this slide, as well as the email address. And as you can see at the bottom of the page here, this session is going to be available for download, and we'll be getting that specific link out so that you can go ahead and download this entire presentation if you would like to share it with others in your organization who couldn't attend today.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeff, for your time this afternoon, and thank you everyone that was able to attend the call, and we look forward to talking with you again soon. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.